Hello, everyone, and we are live. This is AI Pressure Cooker Live. Today, 25th of June, is really a very sunny and hot day in the Netherlands where I live. So I feel like my metaphor of a pressure cooker, it's really coming to life specifically today, which actually made me think about pressure cookers. And the more I thought about it, the more I was reflecting on this idea of the promise that we're going to get more output, of course, for less time. But more importantly, they had this slick promise in a way, showing us that difficult things like cooking could become super easy. But unfortunately, faster cooking never created better chefs, at least I'm not aware. And the only thing that happened, it compressed the process. So when I was thinking about today, I kind of see a really strong parallel between everything that is happening with AI, more output, more options, more automation. But at the same time, I feel like we're also sitting on this huge illusion that we've solved the hard problems. And I invited specifically today Madalena Costa, who is experienced design and AI leader for many, many years behind her belt, but also the host of Human and Intelligent podcast. Super cool show, by the way, for those that don't know it, to talk to her about the interface, but not in the sense of what we are now getting used to, the prompt, but actually pushing beyond the obvious and asking these hard questions. Aren't we actually offloading the unpredictability and the risk to the users for them to figure out how to ask, how to decide, when to challenge it, when to ignore it? So, Madalena, I'm super excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Krause. I'm very excited to be here as well and to discuss the topics that we have been discussing together for quite a while now.
Yes, indeed. And I wanted to warm up since we are sitting on a lot of heat today, the conversation. And I wanted to ask you from where you're sitting, what do you think is the most pressing problem for product and design teams? And I know you work with both. So I'm curious to hear what's going on right now from what you see.
Well, I guess one of the things that is acknowledged between different teams within different scopes is that they are all learning at the same time, and yet can deliver a lot of friction. And yesterday I went to a conference, and one of the speakers said that that what she was seeing was that people were saying, like, for example, developers were saying that designers will not have a future. Designers were saying that developers won't have a future. PMs were saying that, I don't know, whatever was not going to have a feature, and we need to
No
help
one
this
is having a future.
Exactly. Yes. And I guess it's getting to a point where we are becoming so overwhelmed because of something that isn't stable now, and it's out of our hands. In the sense that, of course, we can always take some steps towards something that is better for us and for the environment, society that we are in. But at the end of the day, no one really knows except maybe a few people, at least us. We don't really know where it will go. But I'm also a bit of lover when it comes to sci-fi. So let's see. If it goes, which of the movies will be ours, if any?
The red or the blue pill, I don't know. It feels like both some days, to be honest. And I'm also have been thinking since we've met last week in person. For the audience that don't know, we were actually together in Lisbon, which was great. And there was a lot of discussion back then about the speed and the implication. But when I was coming back home, I kept thinking to myself, what is actually interesting is to see speed as a mechanism to actually hide unresolved tensions in products just because we can launch things faster. So going back to our focus today to think about the interface and the prompt specifically, what do you think teams are in a way wrapping up really quickly around these unresolved issues so that they don't do the hard work?
In terms of speed, you mean, like?
Yeah, because when you move super quickly, obviously you have to
Mm,
compromise. So not everything is going to perfect, and something
mm,
we can live with, some we don't. But what
mm,
I'm really curious to get your
mm,
perspective is: do you think that this is a coping mechanism to actually
mm,
not worry about these deeper,
mm,
difficult questions just because we have this conveyor belt
mm.
of more features
Yeah.
and features
So
and
I
prototypes?
so I think that the first thing is speed is kind of masking the real situation here, which is revenue and growth in that revenue, also a different pressures within different environments, being the C levels, being VCs, being shareholders, whatever it is. There's a lot of pressures coming from different scopes and different people. I guess that is the first thing that I would say. Uh, Other things is speed is also being masked by the idea that that people are putting everything stagnated, like making it less speed. And if they buy more tokens and fire more people, the speed will increase. So there's a lot of variance to it. Now related specifically to prompting to create different screens, etc. I think it comes hand in hand with judgment and the ability or not ability for us to not have speed as a stagnation to judgment and as a replacement to our judgment and how we do. It should be contrary. Speed should be something that increases judgment in a way that augments it. And that is also something that I always like to share at Human X Intelligence, like you said on the podcast, because I find it very important. Yes, there 100%. It has become very quickly to use these tools with prompt generation, and if we understand how to use this, sequencing would be much easier to create these products. But there's a lot of different levels towards this and a lot of different ways of working this and to make sure that it works correctly, because it's very easy to look at a website and say this was built 100% by AI and it's equal to another one that was not done by AI. But people that actually understand how to use these tools and know, but not only that, but know the process, the system, the background of how these tools should behave and should look in a way that behaves with how the users will use, users being real people or even now in some cases agents to agent. But there's a lot of magnitude, a lot of layers, and I like to use an example, which is the onion. For each layer that you're giving, it's something new, and but hopefully, and I like to make this joke. Hopefully, you don't cry as much
I was
as you
going to
do when
ask
you're
what
like
about the tears. Mhm.
exactly. So I would go there actually in that sense, but there's a lot that we can discuss around prompting and screenings and making it fast, which sometime I actually yesterday at the event I gave a talk around orchestration agents, and after the conversation, there were a few people that came to talk with me about how to make agents speed their work and do most of their work while they do other things. Uh, and there's also a lot of layers to that, right? Uh, but yeah, I don't know if you want me to go through this, if you have anything specific that you would like to
Yeah,
discuss around
absolutely.
it. But
Because
yeah.
I was actually, when you were talking about this, I was thinking how
Mm,
radical the shift between the so-called the traditional UX and
mm,
design
mm.
is in
Oh.
just software now with AI, because we were very comfortable of controlling states, controlling the flow, the copy, everything was predetermined. Even the errors, you could argue that you knew
Mm,
exactly what could go wrong. But now things are very, very different. So
mm,
I'm super curious to hear your perspective. What does this change for designers and product managers? How should they be thinking about the experience
mm.
when you have the prompt and the chat in front of
Mhm.
you, this blank state?
Yeah. I also think if anyone here would like also share their experience, I'm very curious about knowing others' experiences. But I guess I want to start by saying that prompting fails when the user doesn't know what the outcome they want and when they need the system to guide them, basically. Uh, a chat, I would say, is the wrong interface for example, complex multi-step workflows, anything that's regulatory, compliance, and decisions that require structured data comparison, and anything exactly of where the user needs to have this trade-off with the system. And actually, something that I talked with a few people before is in terms of retention. Now, because of this AI adding to these features, right? The way the logic is done is a bit different, even on retention. Sometimes it's better retention of the product when the user is using less and less, because it means that the trust is being built up, and not built down. This is a very concrete thing that we can think about when we are building these products. In terms of focusing on how to prompt to have these screens, which I think is what you were saying, is that there needs to be a structure and differentiation. So different tools have different ways of working, right? I'm very prone of having different projects for different projects for different features within a bigger project itself. This because it needs to have context of the other systems, but it shouldn't continue the conversation with the other systems, not to hallucinate. Because based on my experience, once you have the same conversations on the same place for different features, it gets to the point of hallucination or giving wrong answers much quicker than contrary. So I would go from there. I don't think people, and also based on my experience and what I've been talking with others, is I don't think we should start having conversations without actually understanding what conversations we are having. And most people receive a briefing or receive a problem, and we are getting back to the problems that we had before, which is going to the solution before we actually understand what the problem is. It's just becoming augmented, which is what AI is doing. So when we talk about augmented, we are not talking about only good things and augmented humans. It's both ways. It's good and it's bad. It's what we decide. Now it's just loud and clear about it. So that's why we need to actually have operations and processes in place that are simple enough for us to do in the beginning and then keep adding, but there needs to be some kind of structure before we actually start building something.
Mm-hmm. You touch upon this notion of trust, which is super important, and it's not really abstract, because when you think about trust in the context of design and product, it is actually can be really pragmatic in a sense, knowing when to pose and ask a question, knowing how to set certain boundaries, even knowing what mistakes should not never happen, especially in critical industries like healthcare and finance, etc. And I'm wondering, does this experience of now with you working in the context of AI, did it change the idea of trust and how you'd think about trust specifically on the interface level?
Yeah, as a metric, you say, or even as okay, yeah, definitely.
No, it's actually the pure. It's not even a metric.
Yeah,
This to me is like
everything,
a
like the
building
essence.
pure.
Yeah, 100% changed. And like I said on the example of retention, it completely shifted the conversation around of what we considered retention before and what we consider now in terms of trust. When it comes to trust right now, the layers are very different, because there's also related to trust, there's a lot of different levels to transparency and different scopes, and also control systems. There's a lot of different concepts and actually actionability that we are giving or not giving to the users. Trust is a fundamental thing when it comes to products. Specifically now with AI, I don't think most people that are in tech know this, or know that. Of course, they know this, but don't actually acknowledge this. But there's a lot of people in the world that are not in tech, that have no desire of using AI, at least for now. They don't like AI, and they are the ones that are going to use your product because they are not builders and they don't want to be builders. So they are going to use your products. So it's very important to have this knowledge when we are doing our jobs to be done, doing our targets, doing our archetype types, wherever it is that you decide on your team. It's very different because there's fear associated to trust now, a lot of fear. Before we had, of course, have trust, but it was something that was already known in the community and in the product landscape, right? Right now, there's new layers to it. There's new things that we need to think about when it comes to trust, when it comes to this kind of judgment. In a product, trust can be having just enough cognitive load in a product that doesn't overwhelm people, right? And this can be just sometimes you can add explanations for different types of answers where other times you can. A real example of this is, for example, Claude always says everything that it's working on the background, and it writes very simple explanation of what it is doing, and that comes hand in hand with explainability, which is also related to trust, and it is something that is also becoming increasingly important. But then it goes hand in hand also with something bad, which is on the products itself. AI, for example, when we are building with these tools, and it's something to think about, it gives everything. It adds all the things that it thinks we need as a user, and most of the times it's too much. And we need to make sure that what we are delivering is small enough and big enough for our end goal. Yeah.
And I think that you touched upon two important topics that I want to go back, because for the audience, I believe this is a really an interesting angle to consider, that not only we have to go back really with intention to think about the problem space much more critically, as you were saying, not to rush just because we can with the solutioning and the execution side, but also going back to this idea of the fear and the risk associated with AI. I wanted to ask you, do you also see from interactions with different users a certain degree of change that is kind of blocking adoption? As you mentioned, those that are going to consume our fancy products with AI assistants and whatnot are probably not very much interested to change how they think and what they do. So what is your perspective on how big is really the change that we have to overcome?
Well, I think it comes also hand in hand with strategy and how we are doing this, and it goes also to what we were talking in the beginning about speed. So a lot of companies are confusing speed with the testing delivery, and they're losing a lot of points. I would say they're losing a lot of points with users because they are feature oriented and not client oriented. It's great to test, it's great to optimize, but sometimes we need to have associated with features that's called levels of different levels. Like, is this something that we should add right away to the product because it's, yes, no. If no, can we test it with users first? If it is something that won't dictate everything and break everything that was the experience that users were using, then yes, you can speed away, But there needs to be different kinds of levels of speed when we are actually doing this to product, because we are doing this and we are adding features to a product that is used by users with different level of experience and different level of literacy, a different level of maturity, and yeah, that goes also with the sales, because then sales gets or sales our clients get all of the bad vibe, not bad vibe. I would want to use bad vibe. I want to use something more. But they receive all the backlash. Yeah, exactly.
And I can
Exactly.
even give an example
Yeah.
myself, because I believe that I'm a good, savvy tech user. And recently
Mm,
I had a question to my bank, which happened to be on Saturday, but it was kind of urgent because I really needed
mm,
access to my cash. But I had set
mm,
this limit on the card that I didn't know what to do. So there was my favorite AI assistant. So I immediately rushed to it, only to be told that the AI assistant is available Monday to Friday. And it really
ah,
put me off, because I thought, what is this? It's bad enough that the customer service is Monday to Friday, but
yeah.
equally the AI system was not available when I
Mm,
needed it. And it made me very, very angry and frustrated,
mm,
because it was like indeed breaking an expectation of a promise that AI is like 24 by 7, doesn't matter when I have a
mm,
question, which is
yeah.
indeed super dangerous road. And I think back to this idea of what is the most dangerous aspect in product and design right now. I think we should not underestimate this implicit promise every time we overlay something with AI in it, because users now are bringing these experiences from different contexts into your product space. And if we don't meet a certain baseline, like in my example, why isn't it
Mhm,
AI working on Saturday? I have no idea, but it
mhm,
was taking a day off like
mhm.
a regular human, which
Yeah.
was nice, but not really at the end of the day. So this, I think, from also what you were saying, we have to put back somehow trust on the as an attention when we think about features, but not like diluted in different teams and different components, because it's not just compliance, and it's certainly not only sales or marketing who are at the front of the trust, but it's actually the product
Mhm,
architecture and the decisions.
mhm,
And also back to your point, I think what you were talking about, different levels of speed, I was thinking at that time about maybe we need to even change or rethink our prioritization metrics of
yeah.
how we prioritize things, because in the past it was all about the impact and reducing
Mhm,
risk and efficiency, but now we have this new equation which relates to trust, since the interface is very, very much different and demands so much more from the user, if we want to
mhm,
be open and frank about it or not. But at the end of the
mhm.
day, we're all staring about an empty prompt and figuring out what's wrong with me, since I can't get an answer from it that makes sense. Um,
There's a lot to grab from that. First of all, from the story you said, that's a great example of augmented error, which basically means is they added for the sake of making the process better for the customer service. So it's like add-on in terms of customer service and not add-on in terms of clients. When you're adding features related to artificial intelligence and things like this, it should be something that will help the client and not only the team itself, you know.
Mhm. We
There's a different level.
actually
Yeah.
got a question that I'm going
Yes.
to read about, because it's an
Okay.
important one. And before we dive into the conversation, Bente
Yes.
is asking, I don't know if you can see it on the chat. Can you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I'll
Yeah,
just
okay.
give you a second before I
Okay.
summarize and read
Okay.
diagonally like AI most of the
Mm-hmm.
time. It never reads fully when you give it something.
Okay.
But it's an important point to think about, if you have any tips how to communicate to CTO.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Very excited engineer. Oh, oh, I get that. Yeah, yeah, I get that. Go ahead, Kazi. You wanted to say something.
No. I was wondering, do you have any tips
Mm,
for Bente related to this question? Because I think that many probably
mm,
people listening do face something similar. That
mm,
there is so much user testing can do, and
mm-hmm,
then you have to somehow hold the reins on speed with
mm-hmm.
other people.
Yeah. So there's a lot to grab from your message. Currently, I work for AI tech startup within a traditional market. right from the start, traditional market has already established they already established a well-known way of receiving this in the market, so they are used to something. That's the first like friction that is going to have in that side. Our main challenge is adoption. Yeah, most are related to adoption retention. There's a lot on PLG, product led uh, PLG, product led growth, that you can read about it to help with that. It's something very interesting, and there's a lot related to that in design. I know that was not the main question, but since I'm reading it like this, I'm just going to give a few tips from because it depends on full redesign or work process. Most teams are redesigning the work processes, and there is a need there. And there's going to be, for example, certain teams, and one of the teams that I worked with 2 months ago, if I believe, 2 months and a half ago, was to add how can we have still designers? How can we reskill them in the team, right? Which goes hand in hand also with the question.
I think the question is asking how can we make sure that users are not totally overwhelmed, because this functionality, even to some of us in the product space, is very new and very different. But imagine the user on the other side who may have never worked in that. So I do think that we have to think really hard and critical of how to make it less overwhelming, back to your point of the fear, the degree of change, but also this cognitive and mental load that some of these solutions throw to you, and you don't know. It's too much.
So I wonder whether you have tips for communication with CTO. I have a lot of tips to communication with the CTO. Talking numbers is one of them. I know this is also it's very traditional to say, but talking numbers is always something important. I'm honestly, I'm a bit confused if you can write specifically what you need from the answers, because I'm getting like three different points. I'm talking like user, and then what you are doing as a tool, and then what is happening with the communication with the CTO
there are
in terms of your
questions.
work.
So the adoption is one, which is I think many people struggle with that. It's one thing to show a demo. It's another thing to get actually somebody to pay for it. It comes, in my opinion, if I have to answer this, it comes back to really be clear on what exactly you're solving for user and why is this a pain point, to create a little bit of an urgency for them to realize that they really should benefit much more than without it. The second point is about this overwhelming of users of all of these fancy features, sprinkling with AI here and there everywhere, which makes it difficult to navigate and get your head around it. So I think running awareness campaigns, so getting really back to the basics, using also sometimes humor helps if you can make it quite approachable, regardless of the industry. I've seen some pretty serious stuff benefiting from humor, and also making it more empathic for the users to recognize themselves and not to feel judged just because they don't have certain level of literacy, let's say AI literacy specifically. And then for the CTO, I think you answered the question. But if we go back to this idea of the prompt, thinking about the blank canvas, I'm actually curious, how do you perceive it? Because I have some reservations and concerns in the sense of how much we're actually asking from the user to know, not only have this prompt literacy, which is now becoming pretty much the standard, but also to decide when the answer is accurate, how to judge, when to challenge the answer, when to ignore it completely, and yet still have this commitment or desire to come back to it, AI, despite all of these challenges that we just spoke about, despite being overwhelmed and etc. So what is your relationship?
Yes.
What are your feelings about this chat blank prompt? How do you feel about it?
Chat blank. Okay. Just one thing. I just want to add to what you're saying, but about the CTO specifically, if that's okay. Okay, so one of the things that I would say and adds to what you're saying, I think you're already doing something good, which is the user testings. But when working with enthusiastic CTOs, it is important to frame this user feedback in a way that reflects this adoption, but also the business impact, like I was saying, metrics specifically, rather than preferences or I want this, the users are overwhelmed or whatever it is that you're seeing. Something also I like to see is there's two differences in terms of roadmaps. There's the capability roadmap and there's the exposure roadmap. And it's important to see this because it doesn't necessarily mean users need to discover the functionality as the confidence grows. So that's important to think about. But more than that, I would select some user sessions and have the CTO in those user sessions. Sit him on the frontline worker that is hesitant towards and don't know how to use an agent or do where they can trust it as often and so on. So I would do that. It needs to have these two balances of things. You know, they need to see it as well. And another thing that that companies might forget is that they're asking a lot from users and others and other people and other workers, but they are not giving the resources and workshops and wherever it is and courses for them to learn how to use these tools. So having also use cases from other companies of how they are doing and how much is working, that can also be helpful. Now, related to the chat blank canvas situation with the prompting, I see, so there's two different things. Like the chatbot, I see it as an input-output kind of behavior. And with agents is more behavioral, actionability, they talk with each other, etc. But focusing only on the chatbot today, so it's for sure something that happens specifically because when most people are like saying thank you, are saying like, you know, they think this is a conversation exactly because it's input output. And that's a friction that most companies are still trying to understand how to overcome it. One of the things that they are doing is having suggestions of questions to start and prompting already defined. And that takes a lot of the cognitive load away. Other things, it's starting a chat with a question towards the user to direct it on the position that they could help. For example, asking these questions, please answer these questions so I can personalize your experience the best as possible. And also learning throughout the usage. Some companies, it's win or break, depends, because most users don't like documentation, don't like to read a lot of how they should do it. But having this type of documentation, being audio, being video, being written, of how to use, how to prompt, basically. But there's other ways. There's other things that you can do. You can define a pre-structure that the user can just fill out and then answer that, and they don't need to go over it. But yeah, there's a lot that we can unfold here. But yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you in this context, so how would you then define what the interface is with AI first products? Because if it's not the prompt and it's not the chat, so what is interface in this context?
So for design, when I say, for example, when I usually say like the interface, so there's no more interface, is because the traditional way of doing is completely changing because we are adding behavior to the system, right? Because before it wasn't as intelligent as it is now, but with intelligence comes a need to have these guardrails that we talk about so much, but also context layer, but also the prompting that is on the system from these LLMs needs to have direction, which before it was just you do this and that's it. You know, it is becoming increasingly important for people that work on the product experience to have this knowledge behind them. You know, yeah.
And how do we make sure that as product and design practitioners, we don't have to overwhelm ourselves to become even engineers and to really get into the level of the prompts that is required to have this literacy. Do you have any tips of how to still be involved, but not to change your job overnight either? So
Yeah. First of all, they teams need to have product operations specialists. They need to have people that understand being AI head of AI's operations, whatever it is. They need to have someone that helps have make these directions. You need to learn this, you need to learn that, and not being too much, because most designers, most products, they do not know what to do, and they get overwhelmed because they are just saying use AI, you use AI, you need to use AI, you need to use AI, but they are not actually giving a direction on to what exactly do I need to use AI for. So they are getting burnout because they are trying all different kinds of AIs tools because this is not giving me what I want. What do I. And that is not good. What I always like to say is, first of all, knowledge is amazing. Knowledge is ours. Knowledge no one can take us, except, of course, disease in some way. But knowledge, what we do with knowledge is our decision, you know? And when it comes to that, it goes hand in hand also with the operation side and with the processes. You should not add just for the sake of adding. In order to have speed, again, speed has a lot of different scopes here, but in order to have this kind of speed in the processes, we need to have trust in these tools and how to add these tools to it. So what I would suggest in order to add these tools to the processes is to first see what is the small things that we can add in order to be 2x more quick, and then 3x, and then 4x. Start building out your tool stack. Don't not only your tool stack, but your thinking stack, your processes stack. Everything related to that. It needs to be something. We are humans. We are the same way that they are learning from us. We are learning how to use them and from them and whatever. Yeah.
I've been really impressed by the work that you do with Human and Intelligent podcasts and the different topics and the perspective that you cover in this space, because it's still emerging, it's still new. And one thing that really stands out for me, and I've been reading a lot from also your work around human agency and judgment specifically. And I wanted to ask you, I was actually considering, do we need in a way a new AI maturity metric that judges not only how capable the system is, how much we can automate, but on the other side, back on the user, also related to the question here that we got, how can we measure, are we making our users more capable as opposed to really dependent on these tools? Is there a direction that you would hope that collectively the industry is going to go into?
There's a lot there. Okay, so it's good. So of course everything will shift. I always like to think that there's three different importance, or three different pillars. Being the first one, the professionals that are creating the products. The second one is the systems that are helping build the product. And then there's the user that is going to use the product. And here again, users might be people, might be agents. Now we are thinking in two different things. And for a user, the type of language is different than from an agent perspective. From the perspective of a professional, when he's building this tool, in terms of maturity, they need to think of not only their maturity, but also their users' maturity, being the two scopes again, and they need to think also of the languages. So that comes a lot with that situation as well. But not only that, but there's other things that you can think when it relates to maturity, which is the levels of users, more or less, like I was saying, like a user that is using the tool for the first time. Now the type of onboardings that we used to add to the product is completely different than the ones that we can add now and should add now. For example, one of the most concrete nows that there exists is the user records what they are expecting of the tool and a bit about them. So when they enter the tool, the personalization of the tool is already for them because they gave that, and also comes hand in hand with the prompting that you were saying, like how do they record it in order to have this personalization, right? So the system itself, in terms of maturity, is: are you using your own LLMs? Are you using different models that are already generated? Are you using open source? What are you using? Whatever it is that you're using for these systems, there's different levels of maturity. So you need to have these guardrails, not to give too much or less to them, but to give enough scope for them to do their work. And then there's also the part of the user itself, which maturity is all over the place. An agent testing these tools have a different maturity than not. If a user, because an agent, you have different levels. You have the agent that is prompt to use the tool, and you have the agent that uses alone because you automated that agent. And the types of maturity of them and the types of scope of both of them is different, because one that is automated, the behavior within the product is completely different, because it is doing what it thinks it's correct based, of course, on information that you gave, but it builds out from that information. So it doesn't just stay on that information. Contrary to the agent that is doing based on the prompt that you just gave, it's going directly to what you're wanting, right? So it doesn't really build out from there. It doesn't give you suggestions. So that it might give you like the question, the usually like question at the end of what you can do. And then there's the user that is different maturity, like we said also in the beginning. The way a person that never uses AI will use the tool is different. And inside the product, that needs to have different levels. They need to be the ones deciding. They need to be the ones deciding how much AI they need. They need to be the ones deciding how much AI they need.
I think the agent is trying to get rid of you.
Yeah, yeah.
This is fine. So maybe
yeah.
we how to say, we were not very gentle towards the agents today.
Yeah.
But, jokes aside, if you can think about ahead and imagine, I know a year from now is a long time, but do you think that we'll be seeing a different interfaces and different experiences with AI? And what is your number one hope that it's going to happen?
First
do you have a wish list?
A wish list. So I guess, first of all, I would say that we can see from what has been happening for the past even year, not even a year maybe, but we started with the chatbot that is like a GPS. Then we went to agents, or we are now at the age of agents, which are like automatic cars. You know, they do. So there's a big difference with that. So now, as you can see from the growth of it, a GPS is something that you add and you go. An agent is something that finds the best places, knows your directions, knows that every day at 5 p.m. you go to the doctor appointment. So you don't even have to add anything. You just go to the car and it goes. It's something automatic. And then the next one, which is the future or the near future, I would say it can be a lot of things. Me specifically, but I don't think most people will really enjoy it. I know my best friend hates when I say this, but I would love to have a smart home. I already have kind of a smart home. I have my Google Homes that open the blinds, connect the lights, make the fan on, off, if I say something. And I already have automations on my phone that when I get home, it does what I told them to do every time I get home on my location. But I really like sci-fi movies about, even though all of them die. I hope we don't, but I think it's pretty interesting if we are intelligent about it, if we don't do what the movies did. But
Oh,
it's
and that's a really good last sentence from Madalena to keep dreaming, but also within the guardrails. And if there is one thing that I took away from our conversation today is that we have to really seriously rethink trust in the product stack and also in the designs of what we're doing so that we can properly guide our users towards this AI maturity to which we are heading as an industry. So, Madalena, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing your experiences. I really enjoyed. And thanks everyone who listened to us. So, hope to see you soon. Take care.
thank you. What?